We're going to talk about why higher prices are usually better coming up. What's up, interwebs? My name is Jim Ruswick, and if you're new here, I want you to consider subscribing because we post daily content just like this on this channel. Now, full disclosure, a lot of the anecdotal evidence that I'm going to use to back up my opinions in this video are not actually part of the game industry. I know a lot of us here are game developers, and I want to just make it clear that while I think this will work in the game industry, I don't have a lot of direct experience publishing games with this kind of stuff in mind. So just get that out of the way. But I want to talk about why higher prices in general seem to work better than lower prices. So a lot of people assume that if you lower the price on something, it's going to sell more and you can make more money, or that customers will be happier or whatever. There's a lot of perceptions out there like that. And I want to kind of share three main points that I have that I think can benefit those of you out there looking to price your game or price your product or whatever it is. And I wanted to share my opinions on that. So first, let me just tell you a quick story. So when I was like 18, I wrote a piece of software that allowed game developers to get assets into a game engine. My software kind of loaded in the 3D models. It allowed them to set settings like animations and scripts, and they could set, what the walk animation was. They could load in a gun and say it shoots 10 rounds per second or whatever. And then they just click export, and then that model would be available in that game engine. And it was really cool, and I really enjoyed building it. But when I put it up for sale the first time, I sold it for $5. I didn't sell any. I didn't sell a single one. And I was disappointed. I thought the quality of my product was bad. I was embarrassed, right? Even though no one knew how many units I sold, I got embarrassed. I went back to the drawing board and I started learning marketing. I started reading books. I started looking up a lot of stuff. And what I found was that one, my marketing was bad. So I upped the marketing. I changed the page. I changed the headline. I changed a bunch of stuff. And then I changed the price to $29 instead of $5. My software started selling really well. In fact, it sold over the next several years, and it paid a lot of my bills over that time. And this blew my mind. Like, how could raising a price of something actually make it sell better? Like, yes, I upgraded the marketing. Yes, I messed around with stuff. But generally, shouldn't people always want to buy the lower priced item? Aren't people logical? Don't people want a good deal? $5 was a really good deal for that piece of software. So that's what got me into marketing. That's what got me into psychology, because I got super, super interested in that. And that's kind of the basis for a lot of the stuff that I ended up doing in my marketing company a few years later, and kind of how I approach things. So the first point I want to make is that a lot of people believe that lower prices equals lower quality. And this is something that I realized afterwards when I was talking to people, when I was asking them like, hey, why did you buy this at $29? Why didn't you buy this at $5? And so on and so forth. And I realized that people, when they wanted a piece of software to actually do what they wanted to do, they thought $5 wasn't going to cut it. They thought it was going to be a crappy little program at that price. They thought there's no way that $5 could justify what I was promising. And I think that something similar goes for games, right? Like and in games, it's even worse. Like if you see a game on Steam for 99 cents, $2, $2.99 or something like that, you're going to second guess it. Like, hey, wait a second, why is this game so cheap? Versus if it's 10 or 15 or 19, you're going to look at it a little bit differently. And that's just what humans do, that we think that there is a rational reason behind the price. We think price is completely associated with quality. And we kind of add in our quality based on those terms. And I think it's just a human thing. I think humans like to associate attributes to things in the world. We like to make sense of the world. We like to rationalize the world. And when we see a $2,000 MacBook or we see a $800 PC, a lot of people just assume the $2,000 MacBook is better. They assume it's faster, it has better hardware, whatever, even though the PCs might be comparable in actual hardware. There's nothing actually different under the hood. Like, these computers are very comparable in speed, but the consumer, based on the price and based on the brand, will just automatically attribute the higher value. So I'm not saying that you should be shady and just raise your prices for no reason. But I'm saying that by lowering your prices, sometimes you are actually hurting your sales. You're hurting your perception. You're hurting your brand, because people just think you're lower quality. They think what you have is lower quality. Number two, and this is the main reason for me, I think higher prices attract higher quality customers. And I actually did tests when I ran my marketing company. We actually found that people that paid a higher price, that were actually paying more for whatever product or service, would leave higher reviews. They would be less problematic. They would complain less. They would have less problems. They would, there was just a whole host of things that we were like, wait a second. Wow. And if you take the actual 80-20 rule, right? And you look at your customer list, let's say you have 1,000 customers, and you take the 20% worst customers, the customers that complain the most, the customers that want refunds, the customers that leave negative reviews, I would be willing to bet you that if your product has a bunch of different price ranges, if you've had sales, if you've had anything like that, I'd be willing to bet you that the problem customers, the ones that leave negative reviews and all that stuff, they came from the sales. And that's just how it seems to work. And I don't really know why this is. I think the less someone pays for it, again, the less they value it. And so they don't really look at it the same way as someone that paid full price. Everyone that has bought one of my products and paid full price for it or anything like that, I feel like they have been a better customer. I've gotten along with them better. There's less complaints. There's less, just general bullshit. I feel like charging more and dealing with higher quality people is a better move than charging less and having a bunch of maybe low quality customers with the product, because it causes a lot of headache when you're dealing with customer support and you're dealing with reviews and you're dealing with all that stuff. And generally it's been a mess in my experience. And number three, there's a perception out there that lower price generally means higher volume. In other words, if you have a game for $20 and you lower the price down to 10, the general consensus out there seems to be you'll get twice as many sales. And that's not true at all. Lower price does not always equal higher volume. And that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they'll discount their games. And sure, it might increase some volume. It's definitely not a 1-to-1 ratio. So don't think that you're going to get twice the sales at half the volume. And a lot of things come into play there. So a lot of people will do sales through like Steam sales, or they'll do sales through like pre-configured sales like Humble Bundle or some of these other stuff. And they attribute the lower price to the amount of sales, but that's not true. It has to do with the marketing behind the sale. A lot of the times it's not necessarily the lower price. It has to do with just all the marketing behind the sale and stuff. I've actually done tests in marketing. We tested percentage discounts in a series of stores in a series of different industries. And I actually found that 10%, 20%, 25% discounts in email, like we sent out email coupons, and they converted about the same. Like, it was really shocking to me. You would think that like 25% off would convert better than 10% off and people would use it more, but they didn't. 10% off seemed to have the same effect as 25% off in the amount of money that they would spend and the amount of people that took advantage of the offer and so on and so forth. So don't necessarily think that the lower you go, the more people are going to buy it. And while, yes, there may be a somewhat higher volume, it's definitely not a 1-to-1 ratio. And again, it floods in all those maybe not so high quality people. It floods in the people that are going to negative review you or request refunds or complain about stuff or like review hostage you, like it's just, there's a lot of low quality people that come in on the lower end of the spectrum. Not saying all people that buy games on sales are lower quality people, okay? I like sales just like everybody else. Like, there's nothing wrong with buying games on sale, but I'm just saying in general, I seem to have more problems with the people that pay lower prices than the people that pay higher prices. And my final point, number 4, I think there's a huge advertising benefit or just marketing in general for having higher prices. So the lower your price is, the harder it is to acquire customers. If you have a high price point, you can do things like advertising. You can test out different ads and stuff. How you generally run an ad campaign is you try and spend less on the ad than you make on the sale. So if my game is $20, if I can put out an ad and I can spend $19 and then sell my game for $20, I can make $1 every time, assuming that's all profit. And that's a profitable transaction. If that same game was $10 and it cost me $19 to get a customer through the door, now I'm losing money. So obviously the higher price point you have, the more flexibility you have in advertising and marketing, and the easier it is, I think, to generate like a funnel or like a money-making machine based off of like the advertising flow and the cost of customer acquisition. So it's just some stuff to think about. Generally, higher is always better. I think it's more profit. It's higher quality people. Psychologically, people assume it's a higher quality. They associate higher quality with your brand. I just think it's better all the way around. So those are my thoughts. I hope you found them useful. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up down below and let me know your comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think lower prices are better? Do you agree with me and say higher prices are better? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's start a discussion. If you have any experience or stories to share those as well, because I would love to learn about the subject from you if you've published a game or any kind of product out there. I highly recommend you check out our Discord community. The link is down in the description, and there is a free ebook down there, 67 tips for game design, development, and marketing. Recommend you check that out too. Once again, my name is Tim Ruswick, and I'll see you again tomorrow.